The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Excusez-moi, mais je vais parler en anglais. Excusez-moi, mais je vais parler en anglais parce que mon anglais est encore meilleur que le français. Alors, I'm going to change to English, and I would like to thank very much the organizers, namely Sylvie and Bernard also, who has come up with the idea that I can come here and present our experience. Now, to start with, I would like to tell you that I'm not going to talk about the dairy cow, and I'm not going to talk about national policies. I'm going to talk about a private or semi-government company experience from the United Arab Emirates with significant financial resources. You can look at it as a pilot project to demonstrate that a species, the dromedary camel, in fact could be an important food-producing animal. And then, as you can see, I'm coming from the UAE and representing the company. And just to start, before I go into the topic, I need to tell you a few words about why we are there and how we got there. Before, I would not like to go deep into the milk production potential of dromedary camels. What needs to be known about this company, which is called Emirates Industries for Camel Milk and Products. Basically, this is the first integrated camel milk production, processing and distribution company that has been created over there. So we're following the steps of Nancy with a different approach. And it has been said, and it's known, that this species has an excellent adaptation to the harsh environment. It's been documented that this animal can produce much more milk for a longer period of time than any other species given the same harsh environment, and we would like to exploit that. It has been also said by Bernard that there is an increasing tendency of camel milk population and production in the world, although most of this, that you can see that since 1961 till 2008 there is an increase in population by twofold, milk production 2.5 and meat production by 3.5% a year. So there is a potential in the species. Now, however, most of the milk has been produced in pastoral system by hand milking, but here there is a very important element which people don't really know in developing countries, that we're not talking about only a milk. The camel milk among these societies is considered as the white gold. People attribute medicinal properties. They are ready to pay a premium price for this milk. So don't look at it as an alternative only to cow milk or other species milk, but it is a different product which could have magic effects. There's some data they're talking about the effect of diabetes too, autism, and many different aspects which we can debate, but the fact is that there is a belief around camel milk. So, and the camels have a very important role in the society. As if I could represent the human-animal relationship with camels in those countries is very similar to that of human-horse relationship here. It's not a food-producing animal. It's an animal for pleasure, it's an animal for representation of wealth, it's an animal for production, and also, of course, in many countries, not in the GCC, it's the base for livelihood. So, and this is how the project started. More than 10 years ago, we have started a pilot project, as you can see in the middle of Dubai, where we had to start the project from scratch. Before, there was no such a system existing. There were data in the literature from the former Soviet Union that camels have been built by machine, but we didn't have an on-hand experience. So we really started everything from scratch, starting from stud book, from identification, all what you can name it. And then see that these were the first steps. You can see this is the first herringbone milking parlor that we have developed. Unfortunately, that was not my decision to decide that we go this direction, because I worked with camels before and I felt this is a difficult way to do. But I was told, no, this is the decision, you have to develop that one. So we went into this direction and it worked out from the technical point of view. So then for 2 years, while we're doing the technical development here, a farm has been constructed, and we started operating in the beginning of 2006. So it's 10 years ago, in June. It was an open air, and then it was a very nice and difficult experience to go through the development of a project from scratch. So, and this is where we are today. You can see a whole bunch of camels standing absolutely quietly, and whoever comes there and visits us, and few of you in this room has been there already, it is a magnificent view to see those animals, which is considered by many as ugly, aggressive and useless, in such an environment, absolutely quietly providing the milk. So you can see a few more images of our installation. But we got the criticism that with a lot of money you can do these kind of things, but this is not applicable elsewhere. But we have other systems. So we have within our facilities, we can produce milk in a much more simple way, which is, in my opinion, could be used by others as well. So the experience that we gain over here could be and can be used by others. And then here is the third option, because many times camels are milked with their calves, so there was a demand from the local community that we have to milk camels in the presence of their calves. So we came up another way how we can milk camels with the machine and the calf is still present. And then we opened the door. There are many more milking parlours have been built, and this is just one of the construction of a future competitor. So then we come to the products, because at the end we have the products and we wanted to export those products. So today we have liquid milk and flavored milk, and then you might have heard of our flagship product. This is the Camel milk chocolate, because on site we are also producing milk powder, and we're selling the milk powder to a company which is making and producing this high-end chocolate. And this chocolate has an important role in this whole process. And then we have new products as well, cheese, ghee, labneh, and so on. But behind all that, there is a well-defined, well-developed husbandry and management program with the concept that we must have a low-stress environment, should never change camels to cows, and camels should be handled individually, and basically there's nothing new for you. Happy, quiet animals will produce food. But this is a very important concept as a base for our purpose to be able to enter international markets. So you can see this also again. The clear design, good farming practice, and camel-friendly environment is the base of the whole production. And in fact, when we had visitors, we were able to convince people that we're not only talking about it, but we practice it. And then a very important aspect, which we are not going to go into details, infectious disease control, which is the prerequisite for a large-scale farm like that, and which is also absolutely important for international trade. So we focus quite a lot on that. And then I come to the specific topic of the presentation. What are the general requirements when we want to sell these precious commodity camel milk abroad? Well, we have to have a farm which doesn't have to be certified, but surely it has to operate according to a HACCP food safety management system. We need to have a competent authority at the central and the local government level, and this authority has to be, and its function should be approved. Its legislation, its control and certification process has to be approved by the trading partner, in our case by the EU, which is represented by the Director General of Consumer Safety, DG Sanko. And then, but the EU has specific requirements, and among those, before a country can start a trade with them, one is that the country has to be listed among the so-called third country list, which is approved for certain commodity. It has to have an official certificate that certifies both animal health and public health requirement, and that is agreed and approved by the EU. It should have a list of EU-approved establishments, and then it's also very important, the country itself has to have a national residue control plan. And then in our auditorium we've got Nancy, who has been mentioned several times. She had a big struggle some 20 years ago, tried to put her product into the EU market, and she has not succeeded at that time. I put these into brackets because I was told by others that it's mainly due to technical problems of the camel milk, namely that alkaline phosphatase test does not work to demonstrate pasteurization. But as she told me, and you can read it in her book, there are many other issues that were obstacles. And so we had preliminary steps because the idea to try to export milk to EU was born at the time of the construction of the farm. And then, but at that time scientists were involved, so there was a scientific approach. Scientists think that we solve scientific issues, then that will easily convince lawmakers and bureaucrats, and that is not the case. So in this case, there were recommendations made by a group of expert panels, including Bernard Fayet, that in fact camels are not sensitive to foot and mouth disease. And then there were studies on enzyme activities. And they were all true. At the end of the day, none of these studies had a direct influence for the approval process, although it might have influenced the persons behind the tables to convince them to take the camel milk issue more seriously. Then, here comes the role of the chocolate, the business approach. We did have already a concept, a strong product, which the people who did it wanted to enter into the EU. And the production was partly done within the EU. So, there was a strong business proposal, a viable one, which had a support within the EU itself. Then, because of that, we had a strong political support within our government. And because of that, then the local Ministry of Environment and Water, put an official request to the EU to allow the importation of the milk. But all this process starts with an official inspection of the country, and the EU has an organization that means Food and Veterinary Office, FVO, which has come to us at the beginning of 2011. It was a very intensive 3 days, everybody was exhausted, and at the end we got an official report. You can read that on the net. And I start from the back, I start from here. The farm had got a very good remark, it was excellent, we were very glad. However, there were a number of public health and animal health issues. But at the public health part, there are certain regulations which we have to comply in terms of heat treatment. And then the animal health situation, they describe that the country needs significant improvement in terms of animal health before any commodity could be exported to the EU. And here I would like to show you this point from the regulation, which is the relevant EU regulation laid down for the control of food of animal origin for EU exportation. When we're talking about milk, that regulation names the cow, the ewes, the goat, the buffalo as species which are allowed to export milk products from, and then it describes what kind of heat treatment. And then there is a second point which I don't have here. These are all the other species. In case of all the other species, they require UHT treatment or sterilization. So in the beginning of 2011, we ended up with the situation with an official report which puts the country into a relatively negative perspective, and we have an EU regulation which makes impossible to export the milk. So the presentation started, the title is The Bumpy Road. At this stage, most of us believed that we would never succeed. But, and there is also a but, and here I would like to show you these technical photos, and I apologize from the chairman, maybe taking a bit of time, but it's an interesting story. So you need the technical elements here. And this is a graph of the pH change of camel milk over a 2-year period. Well, there is a nice seasonal change, but the most important is, it hardly ever reaches the pH 7. And we will get to that. I go back. Why? Because in this legislation, how they have to treat the cow, the sheep and the goat and the buffalo milk, there is one point. If the milk is below pH 7, HTST means high temperature short term, that means 72 Celsius, 15-second heat treatment is sufficient. And that was a key point here, because that kind of heat treatment is perfectly sufficient for the camel milk. We can use it, and even people from Iran knows that UHT at the moment doesn't work for camel milk. So that's an important technical point here. Then, when we got this report in 2011, everybody felt that this is the end of the road, but the UAE government turned again toward the EU and asked EU for professional help. And EU does have experts who are not doing necessary inspections, but helping to gain proper competence from the trading partner. So those experts were sent, and they have come up with few suggestions. Well, one of the suggestions was improve legislation, very simple, relatively simple, transpose all relevant EU legislation to a ministerial resolution, which has been done, it's paperwork. Then training stuff, which is very important, do organization changes, and there were two important elements, which is called regionalization and compartmentalization. So basically what they said, don't look at the entire country. UAE is a federal country, and the Emirate of Dubai is one state within the federal country. So focus only that particular emirate. That was one. The second one is, consider the farm, because it's far from other animal establishment, consider the farm as state in the state. And when we look at all this, then after that, UAE has reached the position to meet the FAO requirements and recommendations. And then, as a result of all that effort, then EU suggested changes in its existing regulations, and they introduced the Commission implementing regulation number so-and-so, last year in 2013, where actually they have included the dromedary camel into the species that they accept the milk from. That's a very significant step, not only for us, but any other person who are interested in these species. So dromedary camels are considered in terms of evaluation of milk the same way as the cow, the sheep, the goat and the buffalo. And the second aspect in this regulation, they included the Emirate of Dubai as a third country to be able to import milk, to the camel milk from Camelus dromedarius, the dromedary camel, to the EU. And this required anonymous favorable vote for all 27 member states representatives. So you can imagine, this is a long process. It might have required some lobby activity as well. So I would like to conclude that this whole approval process required an effort of a lot of people over several years. We took that challenge and the risk because the success was not guaranteed at all. And at the end, obviously, everybody was happy. But that requires a constant and continuous work, not only from our side, but the authorities and all people around that activity. And then here I point out two elements, which one is the National Residue Control Plan. In case of the UAE, this is a cost of approximately 100,000 euro per year. So this activity requires a certain budget. But at the end, I like to conclude that despite of this, we have opened the door for others and showed others there is a way to follow if someone has another business opportunity or possibility. And this could have not been done also without the staff with whom we are working. And I would really like to thank you. Merci beaucoup pour la possibilité, pour l'attention et pour l'invitation.